Good morning. Good morning and welcome to another video with a guy and his projects. Today we are working on the 2004 Dodge Ram 5.7 liter V8 1500 4x4. What we're doing today is we are replacing a radiator. I don't think this is going to be that big of a deal. By the way, so this is one of the plastic / aluminum radiators. Essentially they take this plastic portion here and they just crimp it onto the radiator. It works great. I mean, bazillions of radiators are designed that way, but they seem to always leak right here in this crimp over time. Not immediately, obviously, you get several years, but it seems to be, if they're going to leak, that's where they leak. Doesn't look like where this one's leaking, but that's where that goes. So what I'm actually replacing this with is, I forget the brand name, I think it's Cooling Sky. I'll link it in Amazon. It's an all aluminum radiator, all aluminum. So right here, this is plastic on the other one, this is all aluminum, so it's all welded. So as long as they did their welds right, this should last for a long time. I had something similar in the Frontier and I loved it. That's also got 2 rows of tubes going through it to supposedly help with cooling efficiency. But anywho, this job does not look that hard. It looks pretty easy, pretty straightforward. The other thing we're doing is we're going to be replacing the hoses. So these hoses are definitely not the original. They are very good shape, except for the fact that whoever put them in went way overboard with the clamp and they tightened it down like the frickin' Hulk. And so those clamps are actually cutting into and slitting the hose on both the lower and the upper. I don't know. So for some reason, whoever owned this truck before, they just had, I'm guessing they had a torque wrench and they just set it to 250 foot-pounds and left it for everything. Even these lug nuts, I pulled this tire off the other day to test fit one of the new rims. And dude, I had to use a 24-inch breaker bar in all 215 pounds of my body to break those loose. Like, I mean, come on, man. But then you get in the engine bay and there's a lot of the same kind of stuff. Like, this is cracked freaking way down. And yeah, you guys don't need to do that. There's torque specs. Some things, they just don't need to be cranked down. They can just be tight. But anyway, that's just my little rant. Anywho, so we're gonna go ahead and replace this, and let's see how involved it is. Stick around.
Underneath the radiator, you're going to find a little petcock or drain valve on the left-hand side if you are in the driver's seat. You're just going to crank that loose. It's going to come out in a little stream. A lot of people take the cap off first so it goes faster. I do it secondly so you don't splash yourself in the face. Remove that radiator cap. That'll remove any vacuum that might be happening and allow it to drain much faster, as you can now see. While that's draining, we're going to go ahead and remove the upper radiator hose. Just pop this off. You might have to twist it, and then there's going to be fluid in it, so just dump it out, aim it towards the drain pan. And again, while you're waiting for it to drain, go ahead and take the other end of the hose off. If you have a faulty or maybe faulty thermostat, now would be the perfect time to replace it. It's inside that housing right there. We're just admiring my nasty fluid in there right now. Now we're going to do the lower radiator hose. I took this off of from the block first, only because I could not get the other end off. I had to grind the hose clamp off, as you can see here, because some weirdo tightened it down to like 5,000 foot-pounds. The hose was shredded from the clamp because they tighten these so bad. And it's ridiculous, people. Don't need to do it. Inside that lower radiator hose, you may find a spring. You're going to pull this out and shove it in with your new hose if it didn't come with one. I'm not 100% sure what the purpose is. I'm guessing it's something to do with avoiding the kinks. Up here on your fan shroud, you have a couple of bolts holding the shroud to the radiator. You just saw me pull the reservoir hose off, easy peasy. Take these bolts from the shroud off, and you can pick that shroud up and move it in towards the engine. You probably want to do this on a cold engine, by the way. Alright, you do not have to move your clutch this route because you do have enough room now. I have 2 coolers on the front. You may have 1, you may have 2, depending on model and aftermarket options. You're going to unbolt those, and then you're going to come up here to the bolts that are holding the radiator to the cross member and undo those. These are the ones in the big, huge anti-vibration pads. You're going to pull those out, and now your radiator should be free. You may have to go down and wiggle a thing or two if you didn't get all the bolts. Sorry I didn't get footage of exactly where the bolts are down there, but I promise you, if you look, you'll find them. And out comes the radiator. Now's the perfect time to hose down your extra oil coolers because nothing's in the way.
All right, so we got radiator out. This is the old one. Boom, boom. You can see it's all wet and nasty. It was leaking from in there somewhere. It's all roady. Oh, wasn't too hard to pull out, actually. It's actually a lot easier than I had expected. Let's see. So now, I'll pull out the new one. Oh, which I will link this down in the description below, BP dubs. Notice how it is all welded. Yeah. Got nice welds for every little bracket. Boom, boom, boom. So now, excuse me, we're just going to compare these, make sure that we're the same. They look the same. So just for quality difference, and I'm going to link this in the description below, but for quality difference, this is all plastic, as we know, right? So this has a plastic bracket sticking out right here to screw into with a metal clasp. This is just straight up aluminum. Ready to screw into. This is a plastic clasp right here. This is a straight up aluminum one. I mean, just quality. This is a plastic drain valve. This is brass. Yeah, I mean, this is straight up quality. I like it. So, but make sure everything's in the right spot. You got your inlet, outlet, lower, upper, whatever they're called. So these vibration reducers, looks like we need to save those and put them in the new one, but other than that, looks like everything's there. But the other side, we want to make sure we can slide our coolers, our oil coolers in. It's got them right there. So it looks like we're in good shape. So after all this sitting here talking them up, I did find something a little concerning. Oh, I just went to pull this plug off of this one to put it on this one. This one's all crooked. It's very crooked. Hoping that won't be a fitment issue, but even more so what I'm concerned about, there's this little hole, little pinhole in their weld right there. Hopefully you can see that. I'm really hoping that's surface only and doesn't go through, because that could be very annoying. Yes, if that leaks, I'm going to be very disappointed. Other than that, it looks very, very quality, and maybe this is bent for a purpose, I don't know. Actually, this one doesn't look bent, but it is offset from the sump, so we'll see. And I'm just gonna slide that on, just like so. I guess we'll find out.
You're going to take your other vibration pads, slip them on into the new radiator, and drop the radiator in place. It looks easy on video because, well, it just looks easy. You may have to wiggle it in a little bit. Now we're going to take our hardware and mount the coolers back in. I actually had to go buy a new bolt from Ace Hardware for this because the hole is bigger than the previous radiator. And look at that magic trick, just barely bumped the camera with my head and it's all blurry. Hang in there, this will clear up in just a minute when I notice it's blurry. For now though, we are putting our bolts back into the cross member so that it doesn't loosen. So this radiator, I'll explain here in a little bit, didn't come with the bottom bracket to tie that cooler to, so I had to zip tie it. And same with up here, this reservoir coolant hose ended up being too short because the neck is up a little bit high. Not to worry, some 5/16 inch tubing, and I was able to just make a new hose. You do not want to make this too long because it'll kink, and too short, of course, will be too short. So make sure it's perfect length, make sure it's a nice smooth transition, and bueno, you're on your way. We're going to now put in our upper hose. We actually did our lower hose first. I just missed footage somehow. I hit the stop record instead of start record button. Oops, I make mistakes. We're just going to go ahead and put the hose on the thermostat housing, wiggle it on nice and good. You can use some coolant to help with that process as well if you need to. This is not a video on how to fill up your system and burp it. There's a lot of videos on YouTube already with that. Please check them out. This is just a remove and reinstall radiator video. I am enjoying this radiator, no problem since install. It is a pretty cool one. I'll link it down below as mentioned.
All right, well, in summary, we put this radiator in. It looks nice. It's nice and shiny. So it supposedly has 2 rows of tubing, 2 rows of tubing to allow the fins to help dissipate heat faster and help with the cooling. I don't know how that works. I know I did the same thing with a CSF radiator on my Nissan Frontier and I loved it. It did run cooler for a lot longer, especially when playing around and going slow. But as far as quality goes, I'm very happy with quality as far as manufacturing goes and welds for the most part. So all these welds look really nice, except for the one on the bottom with the pinhole. I do not seem to be leaking, so I'm hoping that pinhole was only in the top weld. Maybe they just got 2 layers of weld. Either way, it's not going all the way through, or it doesn't seem to be. I did put this on a vacuum before filling it up. I used a vacuum filler. Anywho, so what is wrong with this radiator? So you'll see this rail up on top, and it looks nice and smooth, but you'll also see a big gap here in the with the thingy-majiggy. I don't know why I can't think of what this is called right now. That in and of itself isn't bad. It just means some of the air from the fan is going to get sucked in from here. Not a deal breaker. But what is on the other radiator that came out is you have this little rail right here that sticks up that seals that. I don't think that's necessary. The problem is on the bottom side. It looks just like this. So on the bottom side, I don't know, hopefully you can see that. It is flat as well. Okay, again, not a deal breaker, except for this cooler right here on the old radiator was mounted to those holes on the ledge. So right now I have 0 place to mount this, so I've got it temporarily zip tied to the cooler above it. Not ideal. I think they just missed it, or maybe that's an aftermarket cooler that is not on the stock truck. You never know. Ooh, spider. Now, you never know when you buy something with 200,000 miles. But down here, see this hole right here, and this hole right here. Nope, here. This hole and this hole was what that bolt was going through to mount that cooler. That's not there right now, so there's nothing to mount the cooler to. I don't like that. I'm kind of upset a little bit about that, because the other portion of that is now I have to go find some rubber, because this is going to rattle and scratch on the metal. So this bracket is not on the stock cooler, or the cooler I took off, I should say. I think it was on the stock because at some point I can see where a bracket sat there. So I can't really compare this apples to apples because I don't think the previous cooler was stock. But this goes here. I'm probably going to drill a hole and screw that in place. But the radiator cap seems really stout, really robust. Oh, that's the other thing. So right here, the reservoir to radiator hose, the stock hose. So this right here, the filler neck on the radiator, seems to sit up higher than the last one that was in here, and the stock hose didn't reach. So I had to go to the store, which is 15-minute drive each way, to get a new one of these hoses. And this is just some random I think it's 5/16 hose. I don't remember. I think I showed it in the video. So that is just not a deal breaker, just one more thing you gotta worry about, you know what I mean? So it'd be nice if you didn't have to worry about nothing, you could just slide it in and go, but that's not quite the case. I'm not too worried about this. I'm not too worried about anything right now except the brackets to hold this cooler and that pinhole on the bottom weld there. Other than that, everything looks amazing. You can see a little They started to melt the metal as they were welding, but they fixed it. They got it back together, so not a big deal. So anyway, if you like what you saw today, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more, smash that subscribe button. Make sure you stick around. We got videos on all kinds of different vehicles, some on the house and whatnot. I'm right now getting rid of this grill. What? We've got a brand new grill to go in. I'm not gonna do a video on it because it's super easy, which is probably actually why I should do a video. And we got this one going on, so stick around. Maybe I will do a video on that. I guess it wouldn't hurt. So anyway, we'll see you next time.